The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. Do you have a little one and need a stroller for your next Disney vacation? Then Kingdom Strollers has the stroller for you. They've got a great variety of well-maintained strollers that fit any need. Go to their website and check out the City Mini Double, the City Mini Single, or any one of their wide selection of great strollers. They also have crib and bedding rental as well. During every one of my Disney vacations, I can't go a couple of minutes without seeing a happy young guest in a Kingdom stroller that is followed by a parent that knows they made a great stroller rental decision. Want to see how Kingdom Strollers can help you? Go to their website at kingdomstrollers.com. That's kingdomstrollers.com. This is Mr. Chris, and I love a good cup of coffee anytime throughout the day. In fact, I like my coffee hot or cold, brewed in my single-serve pod coffee maker or in a French press. I even like my coffee both iced and even cold brewed. Regardless of how I decide to enjoy my Java, there is only one Java that I truly enjoy, and that is Expedition Roasters. Not only do I love their traditional brews such as Route 66 Tire Fix and Dark Side Roast, I love their flavors such as Bob Slitter's Brew, Charming Chocolate Cherry, and Happily Never After. To me, their coffees are never bitter, and I enjoyed every flavor I've ever tried. And did you know that Expedition Roasters also carries some of their flavors in decaf? They're perfect for that afternoon cup. You also have to check out their different teas as well, which are great hot or iced. Behind Ears podcast listeners have 2 different coupon codes that you can use as well for when you stock up. Use EARS20 for 20% off that first order. Returning customers can use EARS10 for 10% off subsequent orders as well. When you're ready to enjoy the best in pop culture-inspired coffee and teas, check out expeditionroasters.com. Are you looking for a travel agent who has over 20 years of experience to take care of your Walt Disney World vacation, or your Disneyland vacation, or your Disney Cruise Line vacation, or even those non-Disney vacations? Contact Mickey Adventures by Brandy. Her services are fee-free, and she can take care of all the details for you. You know, things like ADRs and fast passes for you as well. Mention the show and get a Disney gift card if you book a 3-night or longer Disney vacation with park tickets with her. Contact Brandy at mickeyadventures.com. That's BRANDI at mickeyadventures.com, or give her a call at 774-400-3541. Coming to you live from our studios on the East Coast and in the Midwest, it's the Behind Ears podcast, because everybody does Disney differently. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Behind Ears podcast. I am your host tonight, Mr. Chris. Next to me. She's over there. That's right, over there. And see, I know exactly where she is. That's Kayla. And for those of you who are relatively new to the show, Kayla has been on our show before, and she is a good friend of mine. I've known her for years. And you know what? I'm really excited to talk about this particular topic with her tonight, because quite honestly, for someone of her experience, she knows more about television production than I will ever forget. Let's just put it that way. She's really ready to go and down that particular path as a part of her career. And actually, she is a recent grad of Bradley University. You went to Bradley, right? That was Bradley that you went to.
I went to Bradley. Yep. For those, if we have any alumni, hey guys.
See, you made it to the big time. You made it here. So, hey, Kayla, I'm really glad that you're here. And tonight we are going to talk a little bit about our first experiences with Disney Plus. And the interesting part is that I know that it's only been out now just a day short of a week. And quite honestly, there's a lot of things to process when it comes to this topic, because to me, it's more than just a streaming offering. It is just one of those cases where I'm just not really sure exactly how to put it, but it actually seems to be a little more than just your average ordinary streaming service. And for those of you who don't know, first off, I apologize because my throat is all scratchy, going through all the wonderful winter, all the winter cold stuff coming through. And quite honestly, I'm a big Netflix fan. I'm a big Prime fan. I even like myself a little bit of Hulu, and I'm the kind of person that likes to, watch movies and everything else. This, I think, really puts a cherry on top of the streaming cake a little bit. And I myself am very impressed. And I thought we would talk a little bit about what you and I have streamed a little bit. And I know that our tastes are probably a little bit different because I think we both like different types of content. I'd like to talk a little bit later about what we think some of the original productions are like. I think I would love to hear some of your opinion from a person who knows what it's like to actually produce a show like, like The Mandalorian or some of these other, I'll call it reality type programs, which I'll be honest with you, some of them are just really super good. And also what could possibly be the future for something like this. So for starters, Kayla, why don't you first tell me some of the things that you first streamed once you finally got the service? What were some of your things that you just said, okay, now I'm in? What am I going to see first? Because there's a ton of stuff.
A ton of stuff. And there's two things that come to mind. The first is the original content that you can't, like, it's not on DVD. You can't find it anywhere else on Netflix or anything. It's like The Mandalorian and, some Toy Story stuff, like more Pixar shorts. I was excited for those. And the second thing is the National Geographic stuff. I've always been a sucker for nature. I think it is, if you see, here's the thing, like when people watch shows, majority is for the entertainment. But because I got suckered into being a video major, I don't really want, like, yeah, I watch stuff for entertainment, but I watch a lot of things for everything that goes into it. The beauty, the score, the types of camera they use. So for National Geographic, that's all about how things look, telling a good story. And I was really stoked to watch the National Geographic stuff.
Which National Geo stuff have you seen so far? Because personally, I have not watched anything from the National Geographic section of Disney Plus yet. So what have you seen, and what could I start with?
Yeah, I've seen two things. One that I just was blown away after watching it. It's called Into the Grand Canyon. And it's a story about two guys who want to hike from one end of the Grand Canyon to the other. I'm not going to tell you if they make it. You're going to have to watch it yourself and find out. But it's the shots that are so beautiful. Like, looking it on my TV in front of me, it just awes me. To be there, it's got to be more than amazing, breathtaking. And then the second one that I watched actually today before I came on this podcast was The Born in China. And that's it's a documentary that follows, I think, 5 different animals in China. And it is narrated by the guy who plays the office, Jim in The Office.
Yeah. The funny part is I've never watched The Office.
Okay, well, that guy.
That guy.
And it was really cute story. They added some funny parts to it. The guy who narrates it is really funny. So I suggest you really watching Into the Grand Canyon if you want to watch something that's really breathtaking.
I can definitely see that. And I see a couple comments really quick about how there are some technical comments, I should say, that I've seen. I haven't put them up yet, but I will circle back a little bit towards the end of the show about some of the technical comments, ability to stream, or even some of the new features that have recently been released, as well as features that people would like. We're going to come around to that as well. I've been watching your comments scroll by. People have been saying, yes, the Grand Canyon is amazing. I hope to go back someday. And best vacation next to Disney is what Trisha mentioned. And of course, I'm getting criticized by my good friend Chris saying I have to watch The Office. It's a show based in his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania.
There you go. Also, I forgot one thing. There's a third thing I watched on there, and it's The World According to Jeff Goldblum. And for those of you who know me, I'm a huge fan of Jurassic Park, and Jeff Goldblum is in that movie.
Yeah.
And so he has a show where the first episode is about tennis shoes, and the second episode is about ice cream. And he's a very fun, very lighthearted, creative guy, and it's the show's cute. I would watch that if you don't want to watch more of like cinematographic type. Go for the Jeff Goldblum show.
Sure. I totally get that, and I think my son has actually watched his first episode of that, and I think now that you mentioned ice cream, I mean, what would this show be if we don't mention some sort of food product during it? So there we go, our token food product of ice cream for the world. Was it the world according to Jeff Goldblum, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, I'll have to do that. Well, one of the first things I shouldn't say one of the very first thing that I streamed, I had to go right to the beginning, and I streamed Steamboat Willie, the very first one. And I'll be honest with you, I smiled the entire time. I just did. I just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I will tell people this, and I will touch base on this a little bit more later, but I will say this. While I did have a few problems first logging in right as I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, Central Time, I waited until lunchtime before I finally really made an attempt to sit down and watch something, and everything was fine by lunchtime. So first thing I did, I looked at my wife. She was like, "What are you going to put on first?" I go, "Duh, Steamboat Willie." You kind of have to start at the very beginning with something this awesome. And it was really kind of neat to see that it's never looked better, in my opinion. And at the same time, I went ahead and started watching some of the different Mickey shorts. And I just thought that they've done such a really good job at digitizing them. Some people have said that they haven't really liked some of the retouching or the remastering of the video. I haven't really seen anything that I would really say that has been overly colorized or overly processed, but it does look good. And I'm pretty happy with the way that things have looked up to this point. And, I do stream a lot. A lot of pretty much 90% of my content is streamed. And sometimes you can get a washed out picture depending on the transfer and so on and so forth. But I will say that things that I have seen so far have been very, very well done. But when it comes to a new and original content, since Kayla started with some of the National Geographic stuff, I watched the program on Imagineering. And when the first one I watched, my wife and I sat there, and I kind of thought, man, this was pretty solid. I mean, first off, to have Angela Bassett narrate that program, she was the perfect voice behind the scenes for that. But I will say that the story behind things, and I would say that for any real solid Disney fan, some of it might come out with, oh yeah, well, I already knew that. But it was interesting to hear it as a story that took a little bit deeper than just a piece of trivia that I think most of us knew. I myself watched the second episode of it this morning, and I'll be honest, I really actually thought that it was even better than the first episode. Some people I know have kind of, I'll say, wavered back and forth. Some people said they thought it was better. Some people didn't think it was good as the first. I thought it was a great continuation of the story. And I also think that, at least since a lot of the visuals are from, the 50s and the 60s, and as it progresses more into the 70s, it's really hard to find good video that'll help add to the story without having it look really horrible. They've done a great job of, really, I don't say recreating. What's the term I want to use, Kayla? They remastered it. They really made everything, redone everything so it looks really solid. And I think it really tells a story. It tells a really solid story. I will say this also, that there are moments where Marty Sklar is telling parts of the different story. And I looked at my wife and said, man, he looks healthy. And I know that Marty passed away a couple of years ago. It was shortly after I saw him at the Museum of Science and Industry, and he had a big smile on his face then, just like he had smiles on his face during that program. It was really solid, and yeah. Okay. George brings this up, and I'm going to go ahead and say this. George says, watch The Imagineer, and if you didn't cry at the end, you're not a Walt fan. I wasn't going to go ahead and go that far and actually admit it, George, but I'll go ahead and say you caught me.
I was going to say that I teared up at the end of the first episode. I haven't seen the second episode yet, but I did tear up with the first one. And wow, like that was really good. It brought a different point of view for Disney. It made me really respect that Disney had this idea and he had so much passion for it and he really wanted it to work. And now look where Disney's at right now. And just to see the storyline of, because me being a creative, I know how hard it is to make an idea go forward, and to see that he made something that big really, really hit me in the heart.
And I would probably even say this. I was watching it this morning, and it's Monday morning. And Monday morning is probably the hardest time of the week throughout the entire week. Because if for nothing else, I mean, I knew that my time was ticking. I was going to have to go to work. And not that I don't like my job or anything. It's Monday. I'm a Garfield kind of guy. I don't like Mondays. But I felt inspired. I mean, that was the thing. I felt inspired by the different stories. And, I will admit, I get inspired by, I'll say, difficult concepts. And I think Walt, as well as everybody after him, had some real challenges ahead. And the way that they told this story was like, man, if they can do this through proper teamwork and just taking your imagination and making it happen, there's a lot of things that we can learn both in our personal and professional lives, no matter what you do or how you do it, in order to kind of make things better. And I really super enjoyed that second episode myself. And, it's one of those, things. In fact, I'm going to throw this up from Chris. He goes, "Oh, I had tears. I've heard that on other documentaries, and it still got me. Heck, even Bob Gurr finally signing the inside of the Matterhorn even got to me." And I will admit, that was really kind of I was really surprised first and foremost, but Bob Gurr being the legend that he is, that was definitely a touching moment. And I thought that it was so genuine. And I think that was one of the things that, sometimes you get into these documentaries and they're so fake. They're so staged. This one to me felt so real, even to the point where it's almost a little bit raw. And it was just one of those things. It's one of those things that really got to me. And I think it just kind of continued with that. Also, speaking of tearjerker moments, and not that it's intended to be, but again, it's like you feel for these people in the story. Is that I saw the first episode of the Marvel's Heroes Project, and I will tell you that I was like really I was really amazed, not just at how the story was told, but the story itself. And it was kind of interesting because of the technology that this young woman used in order to try to just, bring some happiness into people's lives. And the funny part about it is, Kayla, did you see where, I don't know if you recognized it, but did you see where she did some of her work? If you saw you saw it, right? You saw the first episode.
Yeah, I did.
I looked over, and sure enough, it was the Museum of Science and Industry.
Yeah.
It's like it was in one of the fab labs at the MSI, which I have personally used the 3D print stuff, and it's really pretty awesome. But yeah, it was really, it is. Let's see. Oh, hold on a second.
That's okay. I'm gonna make a comment about this show. First of all, I had no idea that Marvel had this project going on, right? Like, I don't know the backstory, but has it always been going on and they just decided to make a TV show about it? Like, has it been publicized?
I really didn't know anything about it until it showed
Okay.
up. I mean, I heard something about I heard something about something type of thing, if that makes
Okay. Yeah.
but I didn't really know that this was really the core of it, of what was coming on. And I would think that was something nicely surprised me.
It was a surprise, but also it's life-changing. Like that, what Marvel did and is going to continue to do with these kids. I don't know what the other episodes are about, either with differences or not. Marvel's changing kids' lives and hopefully really inspiring them to be creative and to be themselves, because this world is super crazy and all kids want to do is get the new iPhone and be like everyone else. But this show is like, I don't know, it's I try to put myself in her shoes, and I don't know. I can't find any words. What Marvel's doing here is phenomenal.
I think if nothing else, it's just another level of inspiration. I mean, we keep on talking about inspiration we get from Walt Disney himself. And of course, the Walt Disney Corporation, owning these other brands. In a lot of ways, this is just my personal opinion. There might be people that would debate me on this. My whole take on it is that without the Disney Corporation's involvement with some of these other brands, we probably wouldn't see the impact that it has on other people's lives. And I think that is kind of interesting. I think that in itself is something to remember. I do want to bring up one thing to what John mentions here. He says, I think in the Imagineer, it really shows the story behind how not big Disney was when Walt was alive compared to the present day. To me, shows folks that comparing what Walt would do compares to present leadership can't and shouldn't be said. John, let me tell you a little something. I can't agree with you more, because one of the things that I learned from that program, from both episodes, basically it's two things. One, Walt wasn't afraid to fail. He basically put things on the line, but he also had people help him. And granted, some of those people probably, especially his brother, tried to keep him in check, but they stood behind him. He wasn't afraid to fail. And at the same time, there were a lot of things that it first appeared to have been flops. And even in the paper, according to the first one, both of the first two episodes, I believe both, it kind of showed in both of them. Sorry, I'm thinking while I'm talking. And the fact of the matter is that I think there's a lot of parallels to what we see now versus what we have seen through the Imagineer. And I think ultimately what ends up happening is that we will see different things happen at different times. And just because something's not a blowout the very first day, it doesn't mean that it's a failure. And that is very much the interesting part to it. I do think that, there's a lot of parallels to be made. And I do think that at the same time, the whole concept of what Walt would do is a little tricky, because I think we're hoping that Walt Disney Corporation would do it the way we would do it. I've learned a long time ago that there are a lot of people out there that are a lot smarter than I am. And if I don't like something, I don't like something, but I'm going to give it a try just because. And I think we need to see that more in our own thoughts and our own thinking, but I'm going to stop pontificating about that. George also mentioned, if it wasn't for Walt, we would not be enjoying this evening. You're probably true, because we're talking about it. We're talking about what he has done, especially through some of these other things. And it's very innovative of what they're trying to do. Not necessarily that they haven't done it before or other people haven't done it before, but we're now reaching a time where we have more entertainment at our fingertips than any other point in time in our world. I like what Chris says. Chris also says, Walt shows that being unique and being yourself will always pay off. And he continues to say, and let's face it, during his lifetime, he basically failed more than he succeeded. Unfortunately, it wasn't until after his death that his image really was appreciated more. And yeah, I have to agree, Chris. That's very, very true. Now, keep in mind, we're all entitled to our opinions on things. I'm certainly not debating that one bit, but I think a lot of times we need to wait and see more before we start reacting to a lot of things, what Disney has in store for us. And I think that's a big thing. But let's talk about some of the fun stuff. Have you hit any good movies yet? Things that if you wanted to see, have never seen before, or maybe a good old fashioned something that you loved as a younger person. What have you seen so far?
So my goal was to, before this, me going on this podcast, was try to reach, or try to watch as many different shows in each category. So from Marvel, from National, from Pixar, from Disney, from Star Wars. So I've watched The Mandalorian. I think I've watched all of the new Pixar shorts. I've watched a couple Toy Story stuff, which one of the Toy Stories that I watched was Ask Forky a Question.
Oh my gosh, everybody was talking about that.
I don't know. See, I don't like that kind of stuff. But for kids, for like educational edutainment purposes, I thought it was kind of cute. I was like, oh, this is interesting. This isn't for me. I'm not going to continue to pursue it. But if you have kids and you want to, if you want them to learn more, I think it's a fun and creative way to put two things together. Something that it's important, but also something that kids recognize and love.
I'm glad you said that, Kayla. That really provides a really good viewpoint to that, because I'm not a big Forky fan. I'm really not. I'm sorry. I loved Toy Story 4. I really did. I didn't necessarily care for Forky. I'm sorry. I'm sure that people are going to send me hate mail over that. I'm sorry. I just don't care for the character. That being said, I will say that both episodes of Ask Forky a Question were just really pretty funny. And I will have to say that I think there's some good, as you put it, edutainment, value there. I thought to have John Ratzenberger, kick off with the first episode, reprising his role of Ham, talking about money was absolutely hilarious. I really kind of just started laughing, just, I won't say hysterically, but quite consistently, because it's like, in typical John Ratzenberger fashion, he kind of stole the show, in my opinion, for that particular item. I loved it. I thought that part was good. The storyline was good. I'm just still not a Forky fan. What is it? It's just, to me, it creeps me out a little bit.
It's not okay. I'm gonna get hate from this, but Forky is not a toy. I don't know. It's really weird. I don't know. Maybe. So here's the thing. I think I tell this to everyone. I'm a huge sucker for originals. Sure. And I think that's like anything, Jurassic Park, Toy Story, Star Wars. I like the original first movies that came out. And then the rest, I'm like, it was all right. It was okay.
In other words, you're a tough critic when it comes to sequels or trilogies or beyond, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
I can understand that. And because let's face it, the first Toy Story was groundbreaking. Second Toy Story was, well, I really liked it. It was really good. The third one, everybody said it was a total complete tearjerker. The fourth one, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But again, Forky. But again, Forky asks a question is really, really good. I love it. George puts it right up the bat. It's a utensil. But yeah, it's really good. I told my wife one of the first things I wanted to watch was The Rocketeer. Timothy Dalton, Jennifer Connelly, and a few other no-name people. I should say at that time, no-name people. And you know, it was circa like 1991, 1992. And the music, the score for that movie is timeless, in my opinion. The storyline was really, really good. Definitely a solid family movie. And we sat down and we watched it Saturday with my son as well. And my son is a tough critic. My son is a huge critic when it comes to different things. It takes a lot for him to say something like, yeah, that was pretty good. And for him to say, yeah, that was pretty good is really a sign of saying, you know, he really enjoyed it. A lot of times he'll be like, wasn't my favorite, which to him, I'm like, John, you can't have everyone being your favorite. He goes, it was okay. But for him to say something like, you know, he really enjoyed it, I'm like, yes, finally another one. I haven't had a response like that since he and I watched Galaxy Quest. But, you know, or even Spaceballs, I might add. The other day, my son was quoting the movie Spaceballs, and we haven't seen the movie in like 2 years, if that tells you something. So we ended up watching that as a full-fledged movie. But then my son has now been introduced, or dare I even say reintroduced, to The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. And so he started to watch that. And now, like, before bed, he's like, okay, I'm going to sit back and just chill out. I'm going to watch Sweet Life. We're like, really? Are you serious? And so it's really pretty funny because, you know, between Ashley Tisdale, Colin Dylan Sprouse, Brenda Song, you look at them all now, they're all grown up and you're like, oh my gosh, this is such a trip. And so he actually started getting into some of the older series. And I actually went right for like Boy Meets World. You know, I mean, let's go right to the beginning of the Cory and Topanga story, as I think it really should be known as. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. But, you know, it's kind of interesting because the big one I really enjoyed, Kayla, I want to know your opinion of this. The Mandalorian.
So I watched it. I watched the first and second episode, so I'm up to date.
Okay.
Where do I start? It's good. It's good. It doesn't see, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I couldn't quote it. I couldn't tell you like who the Jawas are and what language they speak and stuff like that, but it felt different. It didn't feel like a normal Star Wars movie, if that makes sense. It was a little bit darker. And actually, the 2 episodes went by so fast, and it's because I was hooked into the storyline. A secret character with no name, kind of doing his own thing. I liked it. I liked it. And some of the shots in there, technically, are wow. They're pretty good. They're nice. 10 out of 10. Recommend.
Really?
Yeah.
And a lot of that was not done with CGI. That's actually kind of the interesting part. They wanted to try to do as much on site as they possibly could to really put production value into it instead of a whole bunch of CGI.
That stuff takes a long time. Like I thought about this and I was like, oh, how am I gonna tie this into the podcast? And this is my chance. So Netflix makes their own stuff, but that's all they do. They make their stuff and then they stream other movies. Hulu does the same thing. Amazon does the same thing. Okay, but Disney, you take Disney. Disney's a corporation like Universal. They make their movies. But Disney makes movies, TV shows, multiple TV shows, and then now original streaming content. Like, as someone who knows how long it takes to make that stuff, Disney's going far. And I asked Chris yesterday, I ran into him and I said, you know, now that Disney's starting their streaming service and they're making their own original content, are they going to be nominated for awards? Because Netflix stuff is nominated for awards. Will Disney stuff be nominated?
I think it would be fair game. And I think that's of the caliber of that sort of worthy of sort of a nomination of that sort. I mean, why wouldn't it be? I know it took Netflix a long time to get into the ability of being nominated. Is that the appropriate way of putting it?
I don't know.
I'm guessing. But it's one of those cases where, I mean, we're talking like The Mandalorian is obviously the first big hit from I'll say an entertainment series, whereas some of the like the Imagineering series would probably be a good documentary series. That would be nominated for something like that. Marvel's Hero Project may fall into the category of reality programming or something. I don't know. I'm thinking, well, guess I have no idea, but I would also probably take a stab at the idea that some of the other items that are coming into play starting like December and beyond, when they start releasing some of the newer programs, because they didn't release everything at one time, which I know some people were not too happy about. And actually, I was looking for some things that I thought were day one items that are not. But I do think that a lot of the original programming that they have slated, which a lot of is original series, more entertainment than documentary, that I think has the potential of really busting through to some of those award shows. And I think Disney, with its expertise, people would be totally missing out if they didn't take them seriously as an award contender, in my opinion, at least from what we've seen already.
At the beginning, I thought I was like super against Netflix and Hulu being put on award shows because I was like, movies deserve it. Like they work super hard. And then as I went through my college career and I went through those steps, I'm like, okay, now I get it. Everyone deserves a chance to win awards, to get recognition. Because like I said, a lot of people watch stuff for entertainment, but there's people like you and me who spend their entire lifetime making these movies, TV shows, and original content.
I just think it's actually, I'll say it's due time. I think Disney has got itself the platform now. I mean, 10 million subscribers on its first day. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
That's $850 million per year.
Yeah. Wow. And then that doesn't, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of cash.
Yeah. Also, I didn't just do the math in my head. I did it a while back. And if it's 10 million subscribers a year, that's $850 million.
Well, they're actually hoping to have the goal of 90 million subscribers in the first year. $90 million in its first year. And, even if you just said that the average person paid $5 a month, because with all the different discounts and different people from T-Mobile joining in and so on and so forth, I mean, still 90 million, talking, $450 million, or am I doing the math right? No, I'm not doing the math right. That's 4 point. Oh, don't ever ask me to do math during a podcast. It makes me look stupid every time, but I'll leave it at like bunches and bunches of money. How's that? And, I will tell you this, I don't know about you. I did run into problems that very first moment of trying to get in, because everybody was trying to do the same thing. People were trying to log on. It's a stroke of midnight. And I saw streams of threads of people saying, I'm in. And it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And people started watching TV, at that time in the morning. And people really did stay home to watch different stream content. People were up the next night until, wee hours of the morning to watch content. No, I don't think any other time on this, in the history of the world, have people anticipated a streaming service basically saying, Disney, take my money, please.
Yeah.
So they can watch TV. That's amazing.
It's mind blowing. Like I would like to see the numbers when Netflix was released. How many people subscribed and how much money they made off of a year versus Disney.
But that's an interesting point. My wife and I were talking about this. I was one of the first. I'll say when I was one of the first subscribers of Netflix streaming. I'll quantify that by saying I got it within the first 6 months of them releasing it. And it was actually at that time, I think it was still included with my Netflix DVD subscription where they sent me DVDs in the mail. And, you know, it started out very slowly because you think about when Netflix first came out from a streaming perspective, broadband internet was not necessarily as widespread as a utility as it is today. I mean, that's the thing. Back, 20 years ago, nobody had broadband internet. Nobody could actually afford it. It wasn't until about 15, 16 years ago when I first was able to afford broadband internet, which sounds like a long time ago, but it's really not. And at least not in a span of technology. And now we're at the point where people live off of broadband internet for almost everything they do, whether it be through their phone or through technology or different technology for automation, watching streaming stuff, doing email, watching YouTube. It's all about content. And I think Netflix didn't have these growing pains that Disney is going to probably see just because they didn't have the sheer volume of subscribers. What Disney did in a day, it probably took Netflix years in order to accomplish, in a sense of volume of viewers, let alone when Netflix finally started creating their own content. So very interesting concept indeed, in the sense of thinking about what, if you wanted to compare Netflix to Disney Plus, which I don't think you really can fairly, but it's interesting from this point forward, it's a fair fight. And it's going to be interesting to see how Netflix reacts, other than the fact of Netflix doing a deal with Nickelodeon. And that should be quite interesting. So I will say this, kind of given the interface and everything else, let's talk a little techie stuff, at least from an opinion point of view. I personally really like the interface of Disney Plus, and I've used it on both my phone as well as I have a Fire Stick. How are you watching it? What are your methodologies?
I watch it off. Well, I stream it off my phone and my iPad onto my Google Chromecast.
Okay, so you're a Chromecast user. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people use Chromecast. The only thing that I use Chromecast for is for music. And actually I don't even have Chromecast. It is, I think they used to call it like Chrome Music or something like that. It's basically a puck very similar to the Chromecast dongle that you put on your TV, but it just mainly has an input that goes into my surround system. And to be fair, I've also used it using Roku, and I've also used it on my PS4. The interfaces are very, very, very similar, which is very nice to be consistent no matter which platform I'm using. Just out of curiosity, for the people that are watching in our live audience, what are you using to stream Disney Plus? Go ahead and throw your answers over in the sidebar. I'd love to hear what you have to say, just out of curiosity. Also, if you had any problems, or if you're still having problems, what kind of problems you're having. But here's the one interesting thing, Kayla. They've already started making updates to the apps themselves. People were arguing, and I shouldn't say arguing, people were complaining that there was no way to resume a movie from one point.
Yeah, I was like, how do they not have that? I was in the middle of watching a movie, and it just happened today too. I was watching The Born in China, and I went to go eat dinner, and then I came back to finish it, and then it started it over. I was like, what?
Yep. Well, here's the thing. You have to go, and in some cases, you have to manually update your client or your app. For example, I had to pressed the little 3 bars button on my Fire Stick remote to basically download the update for my Fire Stick. And then when I logged into my PS4 yesterday, I logged in and all of a sudden went ding, and it says, there's an update available for Disney Plus. Press X to download or whatever. So I went ahead and did, and it downloaded in a matter of seconds, and then it automatically updated things. And sure enough, it did exactly what it was supposed to do, which was, I started something, fast forwarded it to somewhere in the middle. I let it play for 30 seconds, and then I went out of it. I did something else. I came back into it. Sure enough, went to the movie, and it picked up right where I left off, which I was really pretty excited about. Now, the only thing is, and I want to see this, and I know a lot of other people do, very similar to what Netflix does, and have a category of, currently watching, or, shows that are partially watched. Even my TiVo has that function for different programs, things that you have, partially watched. And I think that Disney is really keeping a very close ear to those things. And I think they are going to release these updates probably frequently for the next foreseeable future. And they're all going to be these little itty bitty updates, things that are not necessarily going to disrupt lives. But what everybody has to realize is that in most cases, you have to update them yourself. I think on my Roku, which is that's right. I'll say Roku, Fire Stick, and PS4, and my phone and my computer, all 5 I have done. Roku is the interesting part about, at least the one I have, is that if there's an update available, it'll actually update it when you go to start it up. And the problem of it is that sometimes, again, depending on the Roku, may take a few extra minutes to boot up. I will say my PS4 was the fastest for its update, and my my Fire Stick was pretty decent. I didn't have any complaints. Actually, Chris was just mentioning that's coming soon. I believe he's referring to the watch or partially watched list, I believe. So he's like, that's coming soon. It's already been released on some of the new updates. So we'll have to see how it goes. But I think people have to realize every app has a first version, and just know how to update your apps if need be. Check for updates every few days or so. Let it happen. Try it out. And I think that Disney is really listening carefully. I think Disney has a lot of plans for the app. I think we need to give it a little bit of, time. A lot of people seems to be like Mary is using an app on an iPad. Travis uses Apple TV. Melissa is the app on her LG or Samsung TV. Okay, I'm glad to hear those are working, because we talked about how not every smart TV is equal. I'm glad to hear, Melissa, that you haven't had any problems. Travis got in, was one of the first people in on that day. Rich is using Chromecast, just like you. Let's see. Belinda says she's using CenturyLink. I wonder if CenturyLink is actually doing an app for that. That's actually kind of interesting. And George is using iPhones and iPads. Let's see. And George also actually, it says, when Apple and Disney merge, I'll be the happiest guy. Fan of both. That is actually funny about that. I will tell you that right now. I really haven't had any problems with the app after that first day. That first 4 hours, people were panicking and so on and so forth. I knew that was going to be an issue. It was kind of funny, though. I predicted it wasn't going to be an issue. I was wrong. I'll go ahead and admit that. Although I will say that I didn't think it was going to be a problem getting the actual applications. That part, I actually thought it wasn't going to be a problem. And I don't think anybody really had a problem getting the apps themselves. It was that initial swing, like around 6 o'clock Central Time, things were working okay. My son, when he was eating breakfast, getting ready for school, he watched an episode of the Clone Wars, and it didn't have a single problem, not a single burp or anything like that. And so that was fine. And then kicked him off to school. I watched some news really quick. Then I started having problems. Excuse me. Oh, Belinda mentions that she uses, there she goes. She uses a Fire Stick as well. Okay. She was correcting herself. Chris thinks that the updates are taking too long. They're not using their beta app correctly. There's no way for him to send feedback. Oh, he's a beta user. Okay. Through the app. The continue watching ordeal was reported for around a month. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And of course, to debate or to combat the whole, Apple, environment for him, it's Samsung or nothing. Thanks, Chris. So Kayla's like, don't make me start it.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah, I know. I was joking around because I don't use either. I got a Motorola phone, so we'll have to see that. Basically, Mary says, and I agree with Mary, she's like, I think the glitches were minor and resolved fast. I have to agree. I mean, seriously, I think most people had to realize, in the beginning, I know people were purposely taking off work. That was not a joke. People were actually doing that, calling in sick with a Disney flu, so to speak. And, by lunchtime, it was all fine. It was the responsiveness was back to, what I would consider normal. So it worked out just fine. I mean, Jessica, who's not on the show right now, because I believe she's at work. It was, I think that, she enjoyed some of that as well. Although I don't think she actually worked that day. It was just a good day for that. So we'll have to leave it. So what do you know? So let's put a little bit of an Imagineering brainstorming hat on for a second, Kayla, especially with you, with some of your experience and training and education as someone that has dealt with television production in general. What do you I mean, do you have a prediction as to what sort of challenges Disney Plus might have, especially for like their original programming? Going forward, have you given that any thought? Do you have any ideas on that particular thought process? And I am putting you on the spot with a very randomish question.
That's okay. So you're asking what challenges do I think Disney is going to have while continuing making original content?
Yeah, something like that.
I think their challenge is probably going to be making original content. Not like, oh, look, we made a Mandalorian original content, but that's like based off Star Wars. I can't, like, there's currently, tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, there is some like different things that are original, but like longer movies and series. What is Disney gonna make that's sort of like original to what Netflix is making? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, to make it something like example, they have The Mandalorian, and like you said, that is based upon a current piece of intellectual property. You have Lady and the Tramp, the redo, that is like, this, I'll call it a CGI redo, which again, it's originally done for Disney Plus as a Disney Plus original piece of content, but it's a remake. We see some of these other shows such as Encore, which is kind of a reality program, which is a little different than what I think they've done in the past, where you have people who have done High School Musicals, basically, or, and it's a chance for them to redo them as adults. I got to be honest with you, that's the only thing I did not care for when I watched that first episode. I was like, you know what? It didn't pass Chris's 15-minute test.
I don't think I'm going to watch it.
I didn't care for it. Do give it a try. Give it your Kayla's 15-minute test as well. But other than that, I didn't find it to be thrilling. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be a challenge for them to come up with something new. And dare I even say a new piece of intellectual property associated with the launch of Disney Plus. Something that hasn't been seen in the theaters yet, maybe something that's not in the park yet. And yet it's going to be a full big premiere because of Disney Plus. I have to, if that's what you're kind of going with, if that's what you're thinking with, I think you've got a really strong point there.
Yeah, because I mean, no offense to Disney, but what a lot of movies they're pushing out are like spin-offs, remakes of, Cinderella, and they're making like the third Maleficent, and they're making a second Frozen, and like Marvel's doing that too. They keep pushing out Marvel stuff. Like, when is Disney going to start making original content that they haven't already created?
And I think,
and that's not for kids. Like, I'm really looking forward to Disney stepping it up and making things for more of like I don't know, adults. I don't know what you want to call adults, 18 and older, I guess.
I get your point. I get your point. And I think Chris says here, I think all their quote unquote originals will be spinoffs of their current movies or show. I don't see them making anything original for the streaming service, only the movies market. Well, even if it's the movies market, it still could be original and not necessarily tapping into original IP. Mary makes the comment, oops, my comment thing skipped. Says, I don't know if that's in their goal or in their plans. The interesting part to it is that it would be interesting to see how they do that, if they do that, and not make it remakes or rehashing. Because what's the best way of putting this? I think a lot of people in the Disney community in general, a lot of people are giving Disney flack about all the different movie remakes lately. You know, Aladdin, Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, all the live action remakes. To do it again within Disney Plus format would be probably not very advised, just because people have been so harsh about it. In fact, I'm really surprised that one of their first movies that was a remake was Lady and the Tramp for Disney Plus. I mean, I still am going to see it, and some people have said they really liked it, and I'm looking forward.
I watched it. It was okay. It was kind of long for me.
Yeah.
It was cute. So, it was cute. But for me, I like the type of content that I like is how I say it is, you know, and the Oscars, there's that nomination for, you know, best original screenplay. I like those different movies that aren't mainstream. That's not Marvel, that's not Disney, that's not, you know, Universal, like different stuff, if that makes sense.
Now that's, you know, actually John mentioned something here. This is something that I didn't think about. I don't know what you think about it. He's like, perhaps that's what Hulu will be for, especially since Disney has a controlling stake of Hulu. Maybe that's what Hulu will be for, especially since you can package the two. That's an interesting part, John. But Kayla, you're shaking your head in disagreement?
No, I don't know what I was.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I agree. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I think John could be right. Hulu does have a lot of adult content. So maybe we'll have to see. Time will tell in a year to 5 years what Disney's going to plan for this new streaming service.
I think you'd bring it up really well, though. The first year is going to be a real big challenge. Years 1 through, after the first year, the second year, I think will be, you're going to get into a flow. But here's going to be the kicker. By the end of the third year, I think that is when Disney Plus is going to have to really show its true stars, because by then, people who have prepaid for 3 years of service they're going to have to make a decision based upon 2 things: content and price. And if the price is still very reasonable compared especially to Hulu and of course Netflix as the biggest competitor, that's one thing. Then people are going to have to stop and say, what's going to keep me? It's the content. And I think Disney did a brilliant marketing plan by saying, hey, listen, we're going to give you a good solid discount if you sign up for either a 2 or 3 year deal. They did a great thing of marketing by basically, getting into an agreement with T-Mobile. But at the same time, I do think it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen after that third year, because that is going to be the key point. When people start having that third year discontinue and people are going to have to pay full price, it better be worth it. And I'm not saying that as a threat to Disney or anything like that. I'm just saying It better be. The original content better be there, because by then we're also going to start eating up the content of that we really liked. And I know myself, I've got a lot of the content I want to watch movie wise already in my collection. It's going to be new movies that I'm going to really enjoy. It's going to be the original content I'm really going to enjoy. It's going to be, the stuff that I didn't get to see in the theaters that I'm going to enjoy. And then after I see it, I'll then decide whether or not I want to buy the Blu-ray. I'll just leave it at that, because quite honestly, I'm going to get really technical here. Some people may not ever notice this. I think they're overcompressing their surround tracks, and the surround sound in two of my systems really sound horrible. It's all front stage. It's very little surround part of the surround stage. It's a very technical item that is my opinion on two different systems. It's just like the Mandalorian. I noticed it, either that or I just totally missed the mark on that. I hear better surround tracks over broadcast TV. And so I think they're over compressing it. And the thing is that what have I said in the past? Everybody will have heard this from me before. You can't beat physical media if you want the best picture and best sound. And sometimes that's what I want. I want the full experience. But I think right now they're doing a great job with the picture. They need to do a little bit better with the sound. And we'll just have to see how this goes. I know, like, Mary's basically saying, hey, but I tend to watch on my iPad. It's easier than using the DVD or Blu-ray. Very true. And everybody's going to watch their content differently. Me, when I want to watch a movie, I'm going downstairs. It's my theater. I'm going to sit back with a thing of popcorn and a big thing of iced tea, and I'm going to chill out for a couple hours and really super enjoy a movie. I'll also watch on my tablet and things like that when I'm traveling, especially. I'll download the movies. I'll watch content on the plane. But yeah, everybody's going to do it a little bit differently. Let's see. I'm trying to think here. Thanks. Rudy's like, Mr. Chris is nerding out. Thank you. But yeah, it was one of those things. But that's just my 2 cents. Although I really do enjoy it. And we'll just have to see how it goes. Kayla, also, some people were actually kind of making a comment about some of your experiences when you were actually in Hollywood. So let me ask you this quick thing before we go. Do you think that your experience when you did your internship out in Hollywood, you worked for the Oscars organization? Is that correct?
Ooh, no, I wish.
I thought you did.
I was a production assistant on the SAG Awards.
Well,
did it last year and gonna do it this year. Did it this year and about to do it in 2020.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Okay, that's right. I knew it was one of the big ones, and it was the Screen Actors Guild. And if there was one thing that you could probably say that either you did or you experienced that really helped, plus your appreciation for the television arts, what do you think it might be? Because obviously, I know that you were a big movie buff beforehand. You're one of the few people in this area that I can sit back at Baker Square and talk over a pie and talk about movies forever and ever until they finally kick us out, like they almost did the other night. But what was one thing that you think that you learned from your internship in Hollywood that helped you appreciate the art a whole lot more? I know, trick question.
It's a hard question. Well, it is, but it isn't. I don't know. There's a lot of things, but if I could boil it down to one thing, I think it's seeing people on set doing what they love. And I'll explain this. So in college, I created a short film club, and a lot of the members, it was 50-50. Some of the members, they had no interest in film. They had no background experience. So I had to teach them what I knew. And it was hard. Like, there were some times where like I sat in a car with my friend and we ranted about how much we hated it and how hard it was to work with people who weren't as passionate and determined as we were.
Right.
When I went to Hollywood, I was on a set in Malibu. Unfortunately, I don't think the movie ever got finished. That's a different story. But I was on a couple of sets over there, and to see people really enjoy what they're doing and being able to focus on like one thing, that's what I appreciate. Is just being around people who love what they do and they do it well.
It's an art. It really is. It's an art, craft, and to be very honest, it's something I don't think I'd ever really be able to do. I create content, sure, I'm here behind a microphone, but at the same time, I don't think I could ever do some of the things that, you know, a full-time actor or actress can do, let alone a person such as yourself that has an eye for the detail that is necessary to create a beautiful work of art that is a very well produced, you know, TV program, film, short, you know, some other piece of produced content. I've
done all the positions. I've executive produced, you know, I've produced, I've directed, I acted, and then they're like, this is not good, so we're not going to put you on as an actor. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not good in front of the camera. I acted, I edited, I did camera, I did sound. So I think it's being able to do everything and understanding that everyone has a job and it's super important. I understand it and I appreciate it way more than a lot of people.
I could really certainly appreciate that. Well, everybody, listen, we are at the end of our time. Kayla, I want to say thank you so much for joining. This has been a really cool conversation. It's actually gone by a lot faster than I originally anticipated. And I want to say thank you to everybody over in the sidebar joining us tonight and putting into your conversations. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press this button right here. You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this another live episode of the Behind Your Ears Podcast. Hey, listen, you know what? I'm looking forward to the next several weeks. Right now, I can tell you that I've been busy creating a really cool lineup with some special guests. And as you know, this time in the early winter phases, we all know that Danny is actually going out, and his time, his hours that he puts in, it's absolutely crazy. By all means, I know he misses everybody, and I know he would rather be here than working. But we certainly all appreciate your understanding and support during this time of the season, which is his busy time. But that also means that we're going to have some awesome special guests join us. And you never know who it's going to be, but I will definitely let you know who they are. Make sure that you're tuned in over at the Behind the Ears Podcast Facebook page, because that is where you're going to hear about it first. And we hope that you join us, because let's put it this way. There's going to be a lot of different people talking about a lot of different things. And I really can't wait to have those conversations with them. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining once again. Love you guys. And by all means, until we meet again, I hope you have a magical day. Take care.